out of coffee. Good morning, everyone. Oops, hold on. I got to adjust my camera here a little bit. Why is that? I got to go out a little bit further. Okay. What a pain in the ass. Why is this thing all of a sudden not working? All right. Good morning, everybody. Howdy. It's a gorgeous day today. Gorjus. Gorgeous. And let's take a little ride around the battlefield as I drag my heels getting into work. I have a 10 o'clock show, so I don't have a ton of time today. So we'll do a quick loop around. As always, ladies and gentlemen, the gas and wear and tear on this vehicle and my time is brought to you by super likes and becoming a patron over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. All right, so we're going to McPherson's Woods. It's McPherson, folks. McPherson. Trevor says, good morning, Matt. I'm up drinking moonshine. There you go. The best part of waking up is moonshine in your cup. Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Marcia. Good morning, Dogface. Good morning, Donald. Good morning, Cherry Pie. Good morning, Barbara. Good morning, Russell. Good morning, Arnold. All right. Let's hop and listen to the cicadas for a second. Can you hear them? I love that sound. Sound of cicadas and crickets in the summertime. Those are the sounds of summer. Okay, there's a dump truck going at 300 miles an hour here. There he goes. I was gonna pull out in front of him, but I didn't because I said this jackass isn't slowing down anytime soon. But now he has to because he's heading into town. Lee's headquarters there on the left, now owned by the American Battlefield Trust. Used to be a hotel and a restaurant around there. ABC used to be there, Appalachian Brewing Company. And I think it was a Quality Inn, or was it a Comfort Inn? I think it was Quality Inn. No, that can't be right. I don't know, it was one of those inns. And then it all got razed to the ground. Good morning, Marie. Good morning, Tom. Cherry Pie Show says, coffee and Gettysburg views. Bootyful. Yes, it is bootyful. You're welcome. Morning, Matt from Cohocton, New York, the land of wind turbines. How's that working out for you? Besides being an eyesore, does it actually do anything? I don't know why this thing is all of a sudden in the way. All right. Yes, the gift shop was in Lee's headquarters building. I think there was a little museum there too, right? I never went in there actually, but I'm to understand that's what it was. Gene says, good morning from Blink and You Miss It, Byron, New York. Cherry Pie says, Lee would have pooped his pants to know that house was originally owned and rented by Thaddeus Stevens. Yeah. But you know what's funny? Lee was practically pooping his pants during the Gettysburg campaign anyway. I haven't really brought it up lately on shows, but it is well known. If you go back to earlier episodes, we do talk about it, that Lee had been suffering from a little case of what we call the old diarrhea. Pretty shitty way to fight a battle. Morning, David. Oh, God. So Major woke me up this morning a half hour before my alarm. So I'm dragging ass already. Might have to stop for a second cup of coffee. Today I'm recording an episode for Patreon with Pastor Andy Hart. And we're gonna try to scratch the surface of the lost cause. And later on, I want to do a fuller episode with a panel of historians about the lost cause as well. And because I think it's important that we really understand it. You know, people go, well, that sounds like lost cause nonsense. But what exactly is the lost cause? How did it come about? And how, like water from a busted pipe, did it get into every crack and crevice and destroy the understanding of the Civil War that Americans have? There's an answer to that question. I don't know it, but I know people who do. And so we're going to do that today, this morning. And then I have another episode tonight that I'm recording. I think actually it's with Dr. James Begley here. Or Bigley. Bigley, I think is how he said it. Was pronounced. And he's often in here commenting. And I believe we're talking about using tech to teach history, which should be interesting and fun. And because I don't really know too much about, I mean, obviously I know that we do use tech to teach history, but I'm not a very techie guy. I'm not up on the latest innovations, and you might notice that. So, you know, it's interesting to know what else is out there. But, you know, talking about tech and how, you know, you use tech to teach history is great, as long as you're using tech to teach history. I know some people that always talk about it, might even go to school for it, but don't actually do any history teaching. It's more like talking about doing something. So we'll see. We'll see what it's all about. I'm very interested in that. So it should be a good day. This thing is getting on my nerves. Hold on a second, folks. I'm sorry. Okay, a little better there. When is my next interview with Jason Heilman? I have no idea. I don't know if we have one scheduled. I know he and Cam are supposed to do a show about West Virginia at Gettysburg, but Jason had some, I think, work things that kept him really busy, and he had to kind of put that off. And I think Cam, who's very excited about doing it, is for some reason waiting for Jason to take the lead instead of take the lead himself and push Jason along. So I'll have to remind them about that. But I don't know. I know today's schedule because I looked at the schedule this morning, but I don't know. You know, when I look at the schedule for the week, I just see, okay, I don't have time to do anything on this day, or I have time, but not at this time and not at that time because I have shows scheduled, but I don't actually read details until maybe the night before if I have to read something. So I don't know. Dave could very well have something going with Jason scheduled out a couple months, but I'm not sure. Good morning from Bonne Terre, Missouri. Is that Missouri? Yeah, I think it is. Have a great day. Thank you, Rock. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Think of the lie and we at the fire. Oh, now I gotta start from the beginning. Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker, Television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe, Joseph Stalin, Alan Kahn, Nasser and Prokofiev, Rockefeller, Campanella, Communist Bloc, Roy Cohn, Juan Perón, Toscanini, Dacron, Dien Bien Phu Falls, Rock Around the Clock, Einstein, James Dean, Brooklyn's got a winning team, Davy Crockett, Peter Pan, Elvis Presley, Disneyland. I can't, now I'm messing up the melody, which is making me mess up the words. I don't know, but he's in there somewhere. That might be my karaoke song. John says, howdy everyone from Western New York. Do you wear cowboy hats in Western New York? Get it because of Western? And you said howdy. Oh, just another day of living vicariously through these drives. Morning all, morning. Cherry Pie Show loves Billy Joel, so do I. I learned to play the piano because of Ray Manzarek from The Doors. But I learned to grow in my piano playing because of Billy Joel. And then I learned to give up playing music because a woman broke my heart many, many years ago. And that was the stupidest thing I ever did. Not that I would have gotten anywhere with music, but it gave me joy. Okay, we're gonna go, I'm gonna try to avoid getting interruptions, so we're gonna turn left on Sickles. By the way, speaking of Sickles, Jim Hassler told me that they had more than their goal of people at the American Civil War Museum up yonder ways in Harrisburg. And he told me afterwards that several people came up to him and said that they heard about him on the show and bought the ticket. So if you're one of those people, thank you very much for hearing it and responding in a positive manner. And that's very good of you to do that. There are also some people who used coded language to let him know that. One person he quoted as saying, yeah, one person told me that they heard about this on, quote, some other podcast or one of those other podcasts. And, you know, so just to let you know, like, they're pulling the wool over your eyes or, you know, but they're totally betraying themselves. We get a kick out of that. There's no need for that, you know, unless you're doing it as a joke. Speaking of Sickles, I ultimately believe he is one who changed the course of what could have. All right, so here's what I think about Sickles. You say change the course. I don't think he changed the course. The course, I think, all along was that the South was going to lose this battle and ultimately lose the war. In the grand scope of the war, Sickles moving his dominant or his chess piece out to where he did, all it did was lose lives. And here's why. Let's say, and this is Sickles right here all the way down to Little Round Top. Okay. He stayed here, okay? Now, there's different terrain as you go along the line, but this line here, this part of the line, if you were to look out, let's pull over here for a second. And let's look out. What do we see? Well, we see we're on slightly elevated ground. It's harder for you to make out, I'm sure, but see those trees in the mid ground there, right? That's low ground. And then there's the Emmitsburg Road where the Sherfy barn is over there. Now, if I have my artillery here, what happened during Pickett's charge with the artillery? So if there's Confederate troops coming across that field, I'm going to be ripping them apart for a bit first. If I had just stayed here like I was ordered. And then the infantry that gets here might be cut down a bit, and then my infantry will take care of it. But then you say, but what if Longstreet's men don't take too many casualties and, you know, they outnumber Sickles and all that stuff? Great. What happened that day of the Union left? Reinforcements. The Union has reinforcements. The Confederacy doesn't. And so let's say that in some parts of Sickles' original line, he was pushed off, or, you know, certain units were pushed off. Guess what's behind him? The 5th Corps. Guess who's coming up from Maryland? The 6th Corps. So let's say Hood, for example, had some success and turned the flank of Corps. Now, sooner or later, he would be the one getting flanked because the 5th would be coming up from behind. So was out on the Emmitsburg Road, stayed on Cemetery Ridge. I don't see much changing except where we go. That's kind of my take on the whole thing is all these what ifs, all these, you know, all the what ifs are easily dispelled if you really like pay attention to what is going on at different times and who's where and all that stuff. And it's hard. It's a lot of stuff to remember. You gotta really you gotta remind yourself that the movie is not history. And I know they don't really cover Sickles in the movie, but I think a lot of us think in a movie-like way about the battle. And the movie hit certain highlights and we tend to think that was it. But there was a lot more. So I don't think, what was your question? I totally, hold on, let me find it here. Speaking of Sickles, I ultimately believe he is the one who changed the course of what would have been. Yeah. I think what would have been is what was. It's just different. It's like, well, what's like a good analogy? Well, I don't know if this is a good one. It's the only thing I can think of. For some reason, the deck chairs on the Titanic thing is in my head, even though that's not applicable here. But let's go with deck chairs. Like, if you look at the Army and the different units in the Army as deck chairs, this is not even going to work. Well, I'm going to say, like, you know, you could arrange them the way you want them arranged, right? The stewards could go around the ship and arrange them the way they're supposed to arrange them. But then, you know, you come in without orders and you move them in a semicircle or whatever. Your people are still sitting there. The chairs still stay there. And eventually the porters, or whatever they're called, the stewards, will put the chairs back where they belong. And life goes on. All right, that's not the best analogy, but yeah. The South couldn't have won this battle, and I know you're not trying to make an argument that if only this, then the South would have won. They weren't going to win the battle. You study logistics, you study reserves. It's just not going to happen. Lee's diarrhea, a lot of things working against them. Exterior lines. I would say probably spending, wasting time rounding up black citizens and sending them south. That could have been put towards, you know, actually winning. Although they would argue that that was a way to help the war effort. But either way, yeah, they weren't going to win. And it's so funny that upsets people. Like, that's the reality we live in. They didn't win, but when you remind them that there was no way they were going to win, they couldn't have won. Ultimately, as proven by history, like they get upset by that. And meanwhile, we have parents and grandparents who fought in Vietnam, and many of ourselves or our friends fought in the recent wars, and they just gave up. Not the soldiers, the government just gave up and misused you guys. That should be angering you, not the Civil War. The Civil War is ancient history. But whatever. People need to get mad at something these days, I guess. That somehow is a sign of virtue, or I don't know what that means. Definitely one of the best explanations. Thanks. I don't know if I'm right, but that's how I see it. So basically they were already on the losing end. I mean, no one would say that on the day of this battle, or the days of this battle. I'm saying in hindsight, and hindsight's 2020. But, you know, I think there's such a thing as, well, not in the traditional sense, but I do believe that, you know, they were destined to lose. And if you look at the way I look at it is like this. We're this country that comes along that says we're going to put the individual citizen over the government. We're going to be citizens and not subjects. And they have all these flowery phrases about all men being created equal and all this stuff. Yet they're inheriting the ways of the old world. And so that's very hard to undo. So it's kind of miraculous to me that in 80 years, this young country, it's easier for other countries to do it because they were older, they were established, but this young country ends up fighting itself, ultimately, not initially, but ultimately to answer the question of human bondage. But like, I don't know, it just seems, it's almost biblical Like, you know, if we're going to say, okay, we're going to be this country of freedom and liberty and all that stuff, then you're going to have to show the world by just Harry carrying yourself, which is basically the way I look at it. Like, we just killed ourselves for 4 years. And to me, that is like, you know, Lincoln uses the whole new birth of freedom thing. You know, giving birth is a very violent, bloody thing. And it's the transition of the baby from the old world, which is the fetus, or the womb, to the new world, which is the big, real, ugly world. And it has to be violent, it has to be bloody, and it has to be full of tears, but also joy, because it's a new beginning. And that's what I look at the Civil War. The Civil War is the American people traveling through the birth canal. and it's nasty, and you don't want to look at it. But it is a beautiful thing, and at the same time, because it turns the old world on its head. And then, yeah, you say, well, what about the next 100 years? Well, what in your life changes with the flip of a switch? Maybe one or two things, right? You step outside and you slip on the ice and you whack your head and now everything's different. Okay, that can happen like that. But that's one person, that's an accident. But to change an entire civilization, you're not going to do it in 100 years. Or maybe you will, but it's going to take a long time and it's going to be just as painful. So, yeah, you know, everything is gradual in life, and why wouldn't it be in history? History is life. What the hell am I talking about? Why? How do you guys get me on these stupid... I don't even know what I'm saying. I literally thought I was taking a nap, and then I heard myself talking. Ah. All right, let's see. I love Billy. Nice. It might be cool to get some of the old audio tape tours and drive around with a guide and point out how accurate they were. That's a great idea, Steve. I love that idea. Then I have to just find a tape player. I'm sure that's probably something I can find on Amazon. Oh no, I could digitize it. Yeah, I could do that. That's a good idea. If anybody has them, send them in. I'll digitize it for you, and then I'll send it to you on an MP3, and you don't have to worry about it warping. I think you all should sing the same song. Then it's easier to judge the competition. I don't know about that, Gene. I would refer to our friend John Stewart here. He is the karaoke expert. But I would argue that each person needs to have some level of comfort with the song, because the situation, the setting is going to be uncomfortable. Most people don't like to sing in front of people. And not only will you be singing in front of the people in the room, but millions of people who don't view the show. So it's a lot of potential people that could have been watching the show. So I think that I think it would be best if, and not only that, but that would get really boring for the audience. Every time I've seen a karaoke contest on like a radio show, everybody did their own song. You gotta, because it's a performance, you know, you gotta make it kind of your own thing and try to have fun with it and stuff. And, you know, like if, for example, we Didn't Start the Fire, and, you know, the third time you hear at the beginning, you're gonna be like, just shoot me now. Speaking of Sickles, the Cherry Pie Show says, oh no, I already did that one. If Sickles hadn't lost his leg, do you think he would have been cashiered out of the Army? Oh, I would hope that he would have been court-martialed for that. But again, he's a slippery son of a bitch, and he literally got away with murder. And he got down there to Lincoln before this battle was over and started throwing shade at Meade. He's a scumbag. He is a scumbag. He disobeyed Meade's orders, and he has the nerve to go back and start bashing Meade. Like, I mean, talk. What a real jerk. Would you marry, ladies? Would you marry a man who's like that? Actually, probably would. Men, would you marry a woman who's like that? No, you wouldn't. You would marry her, but you wouldn't stay. That's the question. Would you stay with someone who treats you like that? No, you wouldn't. And I hope you wouldn't. I have my doubts, but I hope you people wouldn't do that. Yeah, he's just a scumbag. I understand people liking learning about Sickles. Every time I hear a new fact about Sickles, I have to chuckle. But it's because he's such an asshole. Like, I don't admire the guy. What's the one good thing he did? He gave us this park, supposedly. Okay. That doesn't exonerate him from all the shitty things that he did. It doesn't mean I would have wanted to know the guy. So I hope that he would have been, but I'm sure he would have weaseled out of it somehow. I say Western New York to differentiate between us and the black hole east of Albany. And here in Western New York, we wear Buffalo Bills hats. Gotcha. Nutmegger, I am now 2 questions Gallo. Is that Anthony? Not Anthony. I went to school with an Anthony. Oh, Jesus Christ. You were just texting me the other day. Oh, whatever. It's so hard to keep track of all the names. And it's most embarrassing when I have an interview with a new person and they're in there and I have to go, now what's your name again? I don't know why I don't just look at the schedule. So basically they were already on the losing end. Yeah. And if the queen had balls, she'd be king. Exactly, Tom. The loss of life of the men was the biggest tragedy. I think so. I think he handled his men irresponsibly, and they got ripped to shreds, and it's his fault. It's nobody else's fault. It's his fault. I just really enjoy talking about the history. It's always fascinated me. It's fascinating. Damn it, is 37 too old to become a historian? No joke. No, it's never too late to do anything. "29 days till we will be walking them sheets and the girlfriend can get her bantam coffee." I don't know what walking them sheets means, but good for you. Now more than ever, this is the history that it must be taught. Well, you got to share this stuff. Share this stuff. The other people you guys watch and share, they don't need your help. They've got $1 million marketing budgets. We don't. You were correct. Confederate received pension directly from the states. Yes. But in 1929, rebel soldiers were allowed to be buried in national cemeteries. In 1952, all Civil War spouses received pensions. Right. That was a mistake. Lincoln was without a doubt, but that still doesn't mean they were recognized as American or United. There's no such thing as American soldiers. It's United States soldiers. You're not in the American Army. You're in the United States Army. So they live on the American continent, the North American continent. But again, it doesn't matter what later generations said about them. At the time, they did not want to be part of the United States. And because later generations wanted to, you got to think of the politics of the day. Why were they allowed to be buried in national cemeteries? Who had a really good influence in politics in the 1950s? But that started in the 1930s. Oh, what is it? There's 3 letters. It's all the same letter. What's the letter? I could picture them. Like they wear these white robes with these pointy hoods. Oh, what are they called? Anyway, they had a very heavy influence in our government. So it's like to say, well, the United States government said they could go into national cemeteries. Well, who was in the United States government at that time? The United States government then is not the United States government now, and the United States government now is not the one that'll be in 50 years or 100 years. So you got to look at the time. You can't just look at it and say, oh, the United States said it was okay. I'm not, like there's more to this. You got to look at all the layers of history and not just cherry pick one little fact to make it seem like, you got the winning ticket there. Patrick says, Lincoln was without a doubt the most emotionally intelligent president we've ever had. I agree. The guy took words and made them do whatever he wanted to reframe the war of the nation. Yeah, and he was brilliant, and he was a great manipulator, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Everybody manipulates. But he knew how to appeal to people. He had a heart as well as a brilliant mind. And when you matched a heart and a brilliant mind together, because usually it's one or the other. Somebody's got a heart, but because their heart is so strong, their mind is pretty dull. Somebody's got a sharp mind and they're completely heartless because they're too analytical, they're too logical, and they take the human element out of things. But very rarely do you find geniuses like Lincoln and myself who are both sharp and hearted, and the two working together can convince people of things that others might not have been able to do. And I think the Gettysburg Address is just a perfect example of that. The way he appeals to people's patriotism and their love of their country's history, and their humanity, and the way he reminds them that other people's lives are being destroyed, and that we need to, this needs to come out as something bigger, and there needs to be this new birth of freedom. And he's great with his words. I love Lincoln and his words. Not so great with the Constitution, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do in a war. I was going to ask what the discussion was about today, Matt. Thanks for waking up. Thanks. And Trevor says, in 2008, last Civil War person from North Carolina receiving pension. Right. She was like the teenage bride of a very old Confederate veteran. Isn't that right? Like, he died way, 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 way back when, but she was like 11 or something when they got married. King John Ware in Western New York. Okay. Sickles was a New York City politician, and we still have those shores controlling the state. I'm for putting New York City back in New Jersey where it should be. I think what we should do with New York City is the same thing we should do with California. We get a big chisel and we chisel it off the continental shelf and push it out to sea. If only that's how it worked. My wife refuses to wear a hoop skirt, just saying. Well, I don't know what to say to that, so good for her. Mine did for the longest time, but she just invested in a couple, so keep at her. Oh, you guys are, okay, you're having your own conversation there, I'm sorry. Living here in the black hole, I only have one thing to say. 13 seconds. Bills fan, get it. Okay, good, because I'm not a Bills fan. Remind us to hit the like button. Hey, guys, hit the like button. There's 40 of you in here now, but only 13 likes. Come on, I know some of you are just spying. Agent Bambi, the FBI. What about the FBI? Oh, they don't do likes. Hey, my first Remembrance Day, I bought a Hardy hat. She left a note on my hotel bed. I'm not having a Gettysburg. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Top of the freaking morning, mate. Agent Bambi, happy hump day. Wait, Agent Bambi? Oh, okay, there you go. How you doing, Agent Bambi? Okay, let's see. Patrick says, I know it is seen by some as controversial, but Robert E. Lee and Me by Ty Sigely covers how we term the soldiers during the war and pushes to call them what they really were. Yeah, and that's where I started saying United States soldiers as well, because of the argument that he makes there. They were United States soldiers. We call them Union soldiers, but that was their cause. But they never were. They were United States soldiers before. They were United States soldiers during, and they've remained United States soldiers ever since. And I think in changing that language, and that's pretty much the only thing I agree. Well, and then also renaming Confederate or military installations, but if we change that language there, just call them United States soldiers. I think because if you say Union, a modern day person who's not into this stuff hears that, and that's like, that might as well be another country. They don't understand that, Union. They don't know what a union is. And it's very easy, especially now with automobiles and stuff, like, it's very easy to not think of different states as different states. Because you can get from one to the other, no problem, like in a day. And so this idea of all these unique states coming together under a union, you know, to a lot of people today, it's just, they don't understand that. Because we're not taught this stuff anymore. So they're just empty words. But United States, I think people still know that they live in the United States. Although when you see those man on the street videos of the 20-somethings, I might be wrong. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think that, I think that I lost my train of thought because I saw something that distracted me. Oh, yeah, United States soldiers, that's right. I think when we put it in that context and we remind people that Confederate States soldiers, not American soldiers, wanted to kill United States soldiers and did kill United States soldiers, then I think, you know, maybe people would have a different view, especially if they claim to really love their country today. That's what I don't understand. The lost causer who loves America and is MAGA, but loves the Confederacy. It's like, which one is it? Because you can't have it both ways. I got one of those for my bachelor party in Gettysburg. The groomsmen wanted to wear them at the wedding. You can guess what the wife said. Oh, man, I'm so willing to admit I've teared up multiple times listening to the Gettysburg Address. Oh, I do it all the time. I tried to record me reading it for this year to release on the anniversary, and I want to get other people reading different lines. And so, you know, just read the whole thing all the way through. And by the end, I was like, I'll never let anybody hear it. But you can actually hear me, you know, choke up. And I can't finish the last line. And then every time I bring somebody to the visitor center and I sit down with them and we watch the movie, at the end, I'm sorry, it gets me every freaking time, and I walk out of there with tears streaming down my cheek, and then I just blame the air conditioning. But it's the end of the Gettysburg Address, and then the narrator, the great Morgan Freeman, says, "And now we are met on this great battlefield." And how do you not get chills from that? And how do you not tear up? It's the best. I love that speech. It's the greatest speech ever, and no one has ever come close to that. Hey, Bambi is back. We missed you yesterday. Yes. I thought Bambi was in yesterday. HHH. If Jeb did his job and Lee hammered the Union line early on day one, maybe they could have repeated Manassas, but eventually lose the war. Yeah, I think either way, they're losing the war. But let's say you're right. Lee had cavalry. I did an episode yesterday with oh God, what's the guy's name? I just fucking met the guy yesterday. Steve French, not Jim. I was thinking Jim. It's Steve French. And we talked about Imboden's brigade. Imboden's brigade was attached directly to Robert E. Lee since January of 1863. It wasn't a lack of cavalry. As you say, it was Jeb Stuart did his job. Well, Lee let him go out and do what he did. He didn't tell him to go get caught on the other side of the Union Army. That's just one of those risks that you take. But Stuart wasn't, he didn't just say, you know what, guys, we're just going to go gallivanting all over the God's green earth. Like, he had orders to do it. He had permission to do it. So he was doing his job. Now, the person who didn't do his job was Lee, in my opinion, about regarding Stuart. And I think Lee should have done his job, because the people clarify. They say it wasn't that he didn't have cavalry, it's that he didn't have Stuart. Well, if Stuart is so important to digest and then report, or digest, analyze, and report information, intelligence coming in, why then, Robert E. Lee, did you not keep him with you and send one of his commanders out on that on that ride? And now he has, so that's why I say to people like, well, he had him Bowden attached directly to him, and there was Robertson and Jones down on the river crossing. So why didn't he, detach at least a regiment or 2 regiments from any of these guys, or a regiment from each, and make a little demi-brigade and put it under the command of a colonel or something like that? Well, the answer that I usually get is because it wasn't about cavalry, it was about Stuart. He didn't have Stuart. He didn't trust these other guys to do Stuart's job. So then, to me, that's Robert E. Lee's fault. And he hammered the Union line on day 1. They got routed. Well, some got routed, some retreated orderly. They were dislodged from their position north and west of town by an overwhelming force. By the end of the day, the Confederates were just as tired, and they were just as bloodied as the Union was. Just because they took the ground doesn't mean that they were fit as a fiddle. It just means that they took the Union ground. So I don't know, really. Also, like, Lee, I don't know. We don't know. We weren't there. We're not on the ground. We don't see what they see. Messages take forever. By the time you see something as a frontline commander and report it back to, your commander, and it goes all the way up the chain of command, and then the response comes all the way down, the situation you're reporting has totally changed. And so, there's so, Lee, once the battle is on, Lee, there's not much Lee can do. It's the field commanders at that point. And I think they chewed up the Union pretty damn well. I mean, you look at Cutler's brigade, and you look at the Iron Brigade, they lost 1,000 men each, I think, something like that. They lost almost half, or more than half in some cases, their men. They got it good. And they gave it good. I think if Lee had just surrendered early on, because he knew that it was just prolonging the inevitable to fight this war. But he had to take a gamble. I don't know, whatever. Lincoln's death changed the history like few other events. Yeah, I agree with that. Doing great here in the great state of Illinois. How the hell are you doing? Doing well, Agent Bambi. I don't know who you're talking to. Hey there, Kevin. Missed you guys too. Had a great start early work days yesterday. Called Chi-Town. Okay, bahaha. I love pic from Reunion where Yankees and Rebels shaking hands at the angle. Yes, that was nice, and it was also staged. Hard to love treason. Oh, a lot of people love treason. Abe's letter to Hooker always shocks me how brilliant he was. I know. And it's like a father to a son, right? I don't know which one you're talking about. Probably the one when he gives him command. That's the one I'm thinking of. It might be the only one, actually, now that I think about it. But, yeah, it's like a father to a son. It's like, I don't really trust you, but I'm giving you the chance. Don't piss me off. Don't disappoint me. Like, yeah, you haven't really proven to me that you've earned this, but you seem to really want it, so I'm going to give you the chance. Don't let me down. For the Gettysburg Address, one here should have Patreon submit a line. No clue how. Oh, that's a great idea. You know what? I'm going to do it. I already started on this year's Gettysburg Address, but I'll do it, and then I'll hold on to it for next year. I like that idea. Thank you. When I first started reading about the Civil War, I saw troops referred to as federal troops and Union troops and got confused thinking they were different. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Federal troops, it's like clinical. Like it's very sterilized to me. It's not. They're United States soldiers. Matt, I'm sorry about my name, by the way. It's ridiculous, I know. No problem, Haynes. Tom, love in movie Lincoln when he starts to tell homespun tale and Stanton pleads, no, God, not another story. Yeah, it's like Rose on the Golden Girls. I guess that's a Midwestern thing. I always pictured Lincoln doing that, Thomas, and it made me smile. Okay, car left, so why don't you move up to that spot so everyone's... Great idea, Kevin. Well, you know what? I'll do it. Only so that I have less distance to walk. But I actually have to get going because I have 20 minutes before my guest arrives. So let me see here. Anyone in the chat coming on the tour this Saturday? Looking forward to meeting you guys. Yeah, I hope to see a lot of you out there. You can come on out and meet Little Major. And I don't know if the weather's going to be nice or not. My family's coming down. They never come on the tour, though. They always come in August on the third Saturday, and they never come on the tour. And I'm like, why do you come on the third Saturday then? Come at different times so I can spend time with you. I want to spend time with them, but I got to spend time on the tour. So I'm like, well, come to that. Oh, I don't want to walk around the battlefields. Okay, well, can the men do it? No, we have to go to the pool. They have to go to the pool? So, we'll see. Lee was helping for French and other European house. Yeah, no, he had a lot of goals, and he had it, he was, what do they say, audacious, and he was gambling. This was a gamble. It was a desperate move. Desperate times call for desperate measures. The Confederate Army was in a desperate time, and he had to take desperate measures, and he did, and he lost. I think he should have just... I wish, for the sake of the people who were killed and whose families were ruined by their death, I wish he had just stayed in Virginia and let the war end by being swallowed up, but he didn't. And I don't know, maybe coming up here shortened it, actually. Maybe it would have been an 8-year war or a 10-year war. Who the hell knows? That's the point. We don't know. We just don't know. Anyway. Oh, Marie and her hubby will be there. All right, Tom. So we got 3 of you. We love Major. Great seeing last evening leashed to an Orange rifle. Yeah. Yeah, she loves the cannon. She's big. She's going to be a horse. Oy vey. What was I thinking? Anyway, I got to go get an iced tea or something and head on over to the studio. So you guys have yourselves a great day. Thank you kindly for joining me. And thanks for the likes. And thanks for the new Patreon membership because you appreciate this driving around and gas usage and all that. And the super likes as well. So you guys have yourselves a great day. And I will talk to you next time.